Welcome to Phonogenics 101, a Riotboy production hosted by Jeremy Gloff. The podcast where people who love music discuss albums track by track. Please hit subscribe, and if you'd like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Jeremy Gloff or Venmo @Jeremy Gloff. And now, on to the music. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phonogenics 101. I believe this is episode 97. I've churned out 97 episodes of this shit. And I'd like to thank my Patreon subscribers for paying the bills. I just renewed my Zoom, so it was nice to not have that had to come out of my pocket. And a little side note, my new album, Road to Bartow, came out this week. So I would love everyone to check it out on Spotify or anything. It's so far so good. I'm really pleased. The release party was amazing. But we're not going to talk about me. We're going to talk about Blondie tonight. Everybody was here in the last episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. So we don't have to do too deep of introductions. Tonight we're talking about Blondie's fourth album, Eat to the Beat, which I feel, if I remember correctly, it's some people in this panel's favorite Blondie album, but I could be wrong. But before we do anything, Barry, I think you should tell the whole audience that today's a special anniversary.
Yeah, sure. So I only got to see Blondie one time in their first incarnation, and today is the 41st anniversary of my seeing that show. It was at the Meriwether Post in Columbia, Maryland on August 16th, 1982.
That's so cool. And happy birthday, Madonna, for anyone who's watching.
Yes.
We're going to try something new tonight. I just thought of this right now, and everyone's going to groan and be like, son of a bitch. But I'm going to introduce everybody. I'd love for you to say where you're broadcasting from, and one line that comes to your mind when you think about the Eat to Beat album. It can be anything, a song lyric, a feeling. We're going to try something new. I don't know why. I guess the inspiration of Barry's anniversary inspired me. So, Barry, let's start with you. Where are you from? And give us a little thought about Eat to the Beat.
So I'm from a small town called Mountain, Pennsylvania, which is 8 miles south of Reading or about an hour west of Philadelphia driving. So I live in a pretty rural area. I grew up in Mechanicsburg, which is about an hour and 10 minutes drive west of here. So near Harrisburg, near where 3 Mile Island went off in 78, I guess it was. I think it was 78.
Oh, I watched that documentary a couple years ago, and I almost drove down there because I want to drive by. So now when I drive to, what is it, 5 Mile Island or 3? I always mess it up. 3? Okay. When I drive to 3 Mile Island, I can visit you and we can have a coffee.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Cool. And a line that comes to your mind about Eat to the Beat.
Oh, every time I think of that album, which I absolutely love it album, it's probably my second favorite Blondie album. I always think of Accidents Never Happen.
Ooh.
Another great Jimmy Destry composition.
We love Jimmy. At least I love Jimmy. Yeah. All right. Next we have James. Tell us where you're coming from and a line about Eat to the Beat.
Well, first of all, I need to change my name on my thing. I go by Jim, and I forget
Jim, that's right.
Every time I get on here, it says James. And
we have Jim and Jimmy. Jim and Jimmy.
Jim. There you go. There you go. Well, I am coming to you live from just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm in a suburb of Atlanta called Dallas, Georgia, which is pretty close to Marietta. A lot of people have heard of Marietta. And I too went to that same tour show that Barry went to. I went, a few days earlier when they were here in Atlanta, and that was the first time I'd ever seen Blondie, and the only time I had seen them in that original lineup. Although I don't think Frank was there when they came to Atlanta. I think it was, I think it may have been Robert Fripp that was playing at that time, but I'm not positive. But yeah, it was a great show. It was, believe it or not, at Six Flags over Georgia, which was kind of a strange venue, but there were, thousands of people there. It was just manic trying to get in and trying to get out and, finding a seat because it was all standard, general seating. But so anyway, so let's see. I guess the one line that comes to me from Eat to the Beat, which some of you are going to probably grumble is not my in my top 5 albums, but
Oh.
I'll tell you why later. Is just dreaming is free. I love that line. I mean, it's just, we all dream, we all have dreams. They help us set our goals, and doesn't cost a dime.
All right, cool. Next we have Mark.
Hey guys, I'm Mark. I'm coming from New York City. Each of the beat, a line. It's funny. I was going through it. I've been listening to it, and when you said something about the album that comes to your mind, the first thing that I said is that it's the only album I know that has 2 references to stomach aches in it. I'm like, I don't know of any other album that has 2 references to tummy aches or belly aches. And I adore Debbie talking about getting a belly ache. So that was the first thing that I thought of.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's what I thought of.
Cool. Next, on my bottom left, we have our friend Jimmy.
Yes, I am coming to you half live from the Richmond, Virginia area. I went on a cruise recently, which was wonderful. However, they gave me the flu or something on the cruise ship, so I am slowly recovering from that. Each of the Beat may be my favorite Blondie album. It's hard to say. The hardest part is to pick an album. But the line I would say is, "Your hair is beautiful." Because at the time, my hair was effing beautiful. When she was singing that, I was convinced Debbie knew I was rocking the hair then. So, yes.
All right. And last but never least, my friend since 1995, when we were burgeoning, is that the word, musicians on the folk scene in, I lived in Buffalo, but Daniel was visiting town. Daniel.
Hello, everybody. Well, I am like the last person who shared. Each of the Beat is arguably my favorite Blondie album. I wore out 2 cassette copies of it and 2 different album versions of it. I absolutely love this album. But I'm one of those weird people who's kind of obsessed with the album The Hunter too, and that has a lot of really special songs on it for me. But when I think of God, there's something about the song Shayla that actually can make me cry. I think that's one of the most heartbreaking songs. I think her vocals in it are it's one of her best vocal performances. It's just like, she is just like at the pinnacle of like her as a singer myself, she just kills me every time I hear that song. And so I think that if I was going to think, just the first line from that song, because it just sets up the whole story. Shayla works in a factory. She wasn't history. She's just a number. And still makes me cry when I even recite those lyrics. It's just so heartbreaking. But then it's such a beautiful story that she sings, and you're not really quite sure what happens to Shayla. Does she go up into the sky? I'm not really sure, but it's a beautiful song. And the whole album, what I love about this, well, we'll talk about the album. I'm not going to start talking about the whole album right now. But yeah, there's a lot we can say about this album.
All right. And I am Jeremy Gloff from Tampa, Florida. And this just came into my head. I was going to say a line from a song, but when I think of Each of the Beat, the line that came to my head is Here to Stay. I think Parallel Lines was such a smash, but this is the album that's this wasn't a one-off thing. From the first notes of Dreaming, they were here to conquer and cement their legacy. They came back with a vengeance. And I think, a lot of bands that follow up an iconic album, either they make it or break it. So, how many huge albums from the 70s were just one hit? But the success of this album, when I got older and there was Wikipedia, you saw the charts. I saw Dreaming, I think, hit maybe number 20 or something. And chart wise, this wasn't as big as Parallel Lines. But from what I remember of my childhood and everybody in my universe, this album was just as big because it was everywhere. I remember Dreaming being on the radio everywhere. So in my actual lived experience, this album was just as huge with my family and friends. I guess I would have been 4 years old when it came out, but it was omnipresent in my life. So let's go into the album. Parallel Lines, a huge success. Heart of Glass, an iconic track. What the hell is the band gonna do? They're gonna release an album called Eat to the Beat. Can you imagine when they released like the press release and you're waiting? Was anyone a fan of y'all? Some of you were fans before this album came out, right? So what did you think when you heard like, oh, they have a new album out and it's gonna be called Eat to the Beat? Were you like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it made me think of fast food restaurants or something. I mean, what is this going to be about? McDonald's or something?
Right. It's a really weird album title, and I think Parallel Lines had such a sharp look to it. And I feel like this album, I like the cover of this one, honestly, just as much. I love the black and the white lines. I love the Blondie font. Isn't Chris Stein's hairy arm right there in the front?
It's very 80s looking before we actually got into that 80s look, with it almost looks like the first video games that came out. You see the background of it and you think like Tron or something like that. It was really kind of ahead of its time as far as the cover design, I think. But I hate the title of the album. That's one of the reasons why it's not in my top 5.
So go ahead, Jimmy.
I think Debbie looks so iconically cool on that cover. I mean, her hair isn't really done. It's just kind of brushed back, minimal makeup, given face for days. I mean, you just don't get more effortlessly beautiful than that.
Well, not only that, but a lot of the iconic looks that you think of when you think of Debbie Harry come from this album, because this was the first album that they actually made videos for every single song, which hadn't been done. I mean, like that nobody, it's like right before MTV launched. And, so they kind of were very forward thinking. And a lot of the videos, when you watch the videos, a lot of the official videos start with that same, like those lines, those white lines on the black background, I
remember like they had what show was it, like Friday Night Videos? And this was like shortly after MTV came out, but I remember like Victor was on there. And I'm like, why the hell do they have a video for that song? And I remember once in a while they would show like some of the videos for the album tracks that weren't hits. I remember seeing Sound Asleep on the show when I was a little kid.
There was one point where the whole video album actually was like a Friday night special or something. And they played the whole thing, but it was right after she released the solo album. So it also had a clip, the video of Backfired, which started
I remember that. I totally remember that. Yeah, I watched that.
Because
it's cool.
Because Chrome has it just has a little bit of Chrome, then it goes into something else, right?
It goes into Backfired. Yeah, it's like this big explosion happens, and then all of a sudden you hear Nile Rodgers with it was really kind of cool.
That's weird. I know I watched that, and they probably didn't show it a lot, so I must have watched it right when it aired. Because they showed the whole Eat to the Beat and then that, right? So I don't have a lot of collectibles. I just have, of course, the Atomic 12-inch with the Heroes live version, and then I have the 3 different CD editions. One's the old one, then the one with the bonus tracks, then of course the one with the DVD of all the videos. So those are my collectibles. Anyone have anything they want to show before we start going into the album? Oh, what's that?
This is I wish I could figure out how to reverse it so that it wouldn't be backwards for you guys. But
no, it's actually forward for us.
It's not backwards for us.
Okay, cool. It is for me, but you are the ones that are important. Anyway, this is the Blondie fan thing. They had a thing where you could submit pictures, and I submitted one of this one, which I had taken Debbie's face and kind of manipulated it. Here's the actual photo, which is actually easier to see, probably.
Okay.
So I took her face and just kind of manipulated it to make that image. So I guess, and I was like 16, so I think I was like photoshopping before there was photoshopping. So anyway, that's my only claim to fame in the Blondie universe. Is that, yes, my name was on the back of the fan club magazine.
Oh, that's so cool. Does anyone else have anything they want to say about the album cover before we move into the songs themselves?
I want to add something.
Perfect.
I want to mention that there is a very lovely promotional object that was done for this album. It's like a stand-up, a three-dimensional display, and it has the picture of Debbie, like her cutout on it is like basically from the Shayla video. I always call that thing the Shayla hat. So she's wearing the hat, and it's a nice sized object. It might be like 20 inches tall, something like that, maybe 8 inches deep, and I don't know, almost a foot wide. It's a cardboard thing. You fold out, assemble it together, and I have one, but I'm in New York City for this call, and that thing's at my home, so I can't show it. But it's a very nice object.
You have to show it next time.
Yeah, I will.
All right, cool. Any other thoughts on the album cover or the memorabilia? All right. Well, we all know Dreaming. In my opinion, for what the fuck it's worth, not really much, but I think it's just one of the best songs of all time. I think the lyrics are gorgeous. I know I read somewhere that was it the record company thought Clem's drumming was too busy, but I think that's what makes the song magical. I love how daring, how bold, what a bold statement to be like, we're back, bitches, and we're here to stay. And they're definitely, a lot of times after an iconic album, there's a slump. This shows that this Blondie standard is keeping up on this album. I almost love Dreaming so much that I can't even talk about, like, the lyrics, the background vocals, that guitar tone. It's weird because a lot of these songs are upbeat, but there's like almost a sadness to a lot of the guitar tones and like a melancholy that underneath all this is a lot of sadness. So I kind of like that. But yeah, this is a beautiful song. What do y'all think of Dreaming?
Dreaming is my all-time favorite song of Blondie. I just don't think it gets any better. And I can't think of a better opener of any album. I can remember, when she was touring, I remember it was Deaf, Dumb, and Blonde when she was touring, and I hadn't, I had seen her once before she did a benefit, but I hadn't really seen a full-on concert from Debbie or Blondie at that point. And I remember people saying, oh, what's the one song you need to hear? What's the one song you need to hear? And I was like, Dreaming. I need to hear that song. That's just like, there's no other, Blondie song to me. And then, of course, Debbie came out and she looked great, and she was in like a leotard with a foxtail on, and then it was boom, 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 and then they went right into it, and I was just like, get tears coming down. But I just love that. I love also the confidence that the band has. It's very funny. Parallel Lines sounded like a band that had something to prove. And then when each of the beats started, this was a band that just like, they are reveling in their success and they are having a great time. And it is just boisterous and fast. And even Debbie's vocals, she's kind of singing from this point here. And it's just, there's a wideness and there's a, an envelopment to it that I just, it wasn't there before. And they are just, it sounds like they are having so much fun. Like you said, Clem's drumming is just all over the place. And it's just wonderful. And I just can't, this song is the song that defines Blondie to me.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people think of Heart of Glass as like the iconic Blondie song, but for me, it's Dreaming. Like if I was going to put Blondie in a bottle, I was just reading the lyrics and actually like getting kind of teary. This song, if I wasn't alone in front of you guys, I might be getting into the feels, because I love that line where something to have and hold, I'd build a road in gold just to have some dreaming. Like, especially like in our 2023 world now, in the context of how things are now, that the message of this song, like, shit, Debbie, you're putting me through it with these emotions.
I think this is the quintessential Blondie song. I think that if you had to just sum up the band in one song, this is the one you'd put out there. And I mean, I think this is like the power pop, just the sound. I think we're hearing Debbie's voice in a different way, the way they're using backup in this song. If you listen to her voice, it's a little different than from what we've heard on previous albums. And I think that this is the first album where Blondie is starting to sound like a studio band. Whereas, their earlier stuff was a little bit more thrashy and you're starting to hear a little bit more honed in. They're really bringing it together. It's a very sophisticated way. And Dreamin' is literally perfection. And it was the first song when I saw the reunion tours. It was the first time I saw Blondie. Literally, when Clem's clicked his drumsticks to start Dreaming, tears were literally pouring down my face because I was 15 again. I was 15 and seeing, the posters on my wall live. So for me, this song will forever, I'll cherish those memories.
You guys were talking about the drumming and the vocals, and then Jimmy, you mentioned about, they seem more like a studio band. To me, there are two Blondies, and the Eat to the Beat album is kind of like the start of the second Blondie. To me, there's the original Blondie, that's the raw, coming from the punk scene. We've got this sound, and I'm a woman fronting an all male band, and we got crap to prove. So most of the first albums really had that kind of raw, and they also like the 60s sound, so it had that 60s sound. But then you get to the Eat to the Beat album, and it's more produced, it's more fine-tuned. Debbie's vocals, Mike Chapman in a interview had said at one point that he loved working with Debbie because he liked to do like overdubs of their voices, and he said that her voice was probably one of the most perfect voices to overdub and expand, to give it that kind of wide sound to put out there. And then as far as the drumming is concerned, I think it was in one of those where the band talks about the different songs and stuff, probably a liner note in some album or something, but one of the band members had said that on this album Clem had put every ounce of anything drumming he knew into this album. This was probably the hardest drumming work he had ever done on a Blondie album, was for the Eat to the Beat album. And you can tell. I mean, you can tell from starting with Dreaming all the way down. I mean, even with Victor, the drumming in Victor is it's really, really good. And the way it changes, the speed and the, and stuff throughout the song. I mean, he's just right there with it, pounding it out. But yeah, this is kind of like the incarnation. That's the word I was looking for before. Eat to the Beat is kind of the incarnation of the more professional, we've made it Blondie, which to me is like the second Blondie versus the first Blondie.
So do you feel like the 90s Blondie was a third Blondie, or do you still kind of consider it all the second from here on?
No,
forward?
I still think, I think that they have really maintained that second Blondie mentality. You still have a lot of variety of styles on the album, yet the albums still sound very, very well put together.
Right.
Even though there were different producers and things like that. It was almost like when Eat to the Beat came, Blondie kind of figured out whether that was just Debbie and Chris or all the original members, or even the whole group at that time. It's like they finally decided this is what we are right here, is when they put Eat to the Beat out.
I know in the last discussion we said that there were different kinds of Blondie songs. You kind of have the the 60s ones, and then the more ethereal ones. But I feel like Dreaming doesn't fit any category of any previous Blondie song. And I think with each Blondie album, they continue to have some songs that always break new ground. They never completely rest on their laurels. And I think Dreaming was really new, but still very classic Blondie. Even though they never sounded like that before, I feel like it was an instant classic. And how often does that happen? Not very often.
It was, to me, I think Dreaming is also one of my very favorite songs of all time. I used to sing it actually down in the subway when I was a subway musician in New York City. A lot of people wouldn't know the song because, which is, in New York City, like people either would or they wouldn't, because some people only knew like Heart of Glass and stuff, but, yeah, I would sing that down there. And, I actually got to sing, I actually got to sing Dreaming at a loft party in New York, like an acoustic version of it, that Richard Butler from the Psychedelic Furs was at. And that was really cool because they were a band I loved. And so afterwards he came up and he was like, oh my God, that was so amazing. But that song is just it does still have some of that girl group, like the harmonies do remind me of like the girl groups, like the Ronette, like the Ronnie Spector.
Oh, for sure.
So there is definitely, but it's very modern. It's like girl group, but like if a girl group like that classic girl group sound from the 60s, but unlike the stuff on the debut album from Blondie, like this is like, it's like definitely like here we are 1980s, you know, and it's like we are like here to like do this decade now, you know, and it's like this like a new wave version of the girl, you know, it's very polished, and that guitar, I mean, it's just everything about it is just great.
It's funny you say that about the girl group, but like a modern version of the girl group.
Yeah.
I immediately thought of the Go-Go's. You know, that's a song
Yeah.
the Go-Go's probably could have done.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the girl group too. It's Ellie Greenwich on the background vocals on that.
Right.
So it's like you don't get much more girl group than that. I mean, she's amazing.
Oh boy, how do we even talk about the rest of the album? Dreaming takes my breath away. Does anybody else have anything they want to add about Dreaming? Barry, do you have anything? Nope. All right. Well, we are moving on to track 2. How do you follow up an album like Parallel Lines? How do you follow up an opening track like Dreaming? Well, you know what? Blondie was able to do all of it, because I think the hardest part, I remember being 5 years old and loving that song. I'm 48 and I'm loving that song. When I listen to it today, she has this growl in her voice. Debbie's acting abilities were always good on the first 3 albums, but on this album, she continues to grow. This is a really good performance. Like the grit and the grime she brings to this song. You know, we all could use a Man of Steel behind. This is a sexy fucking song. And we have armored cars. Like, it doesn't get any more Blondie than armored cars.
Shatterproof glass.
Yeah, shatterproof glass. It's so Blondie. It's interesting that with this album, like they are now fully formed. Like you could read these lyrics and you know that who wrote the hardest part? I don't have it in front of me.
Debbie and Chris.
Okay.
Debbie and Chris.
I was just say, like, you could read this and you're like, okay, those are Debbie Harry lyrics. Like she has such a wit that's so unique to her, and it's on full display. So who would like to talk about this song?
I can't hear this song without thinking of the video. I love the video with the graffiti. And
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that was I don't know. I think Fab Five Freddy did the graffiti for that.
Did she have a wig on in the video?
And she had the brown wig on. With
Brown wig.
That's what I remember. Oh my gosh. That and the dress.
The dress that
The sexiest.
Anya Phillips made. With
Yes.
Yeah, she had that with the I always think of that. But the thing I love about this song is, like, first of all, her, like you said, her voice is just ferocious in it. And Clem's, drums are like, huge. And I feel like it's voice, drums, and bass, just going through the song. But then what I really love is like the little like Chris's guitar playing when it's like, it's like tiny in there, but it's just so perfect. And I'm like, how do they figure out how to make that? And it just has, it's this pounding song, but then there's like this, there's this little groove that's right in there. It has a very cool kind of modern Motown kind of thing going on there. And it's a lot of fun. And it's like nothing I had ever heard before at that point. And
it's very funky,
Yeah.
And that was the first time that, I think Blondie really attempted kind of a funk type song, and man, they pulled it off, and then the next album you had Rapture. So, the hardest part is kind of like the precursor to Rapture in my mind, because they're along the same lines. But hardest part, that is a great song. And that was, a very good choice for a single. And it's just sad that that song didn't make it as far as it did. I think if it got re-released today, barring all the pre-produced, images that are out there, if we actually had a radio station that played real music anymore, I think it'd be, really popular today if it was released.
I think if MTV had been around and that video had been out there, because that video, I mean, how ironic that Debbie is at her sexiest with a brown wig on.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like Blondie is now wearing a brown wig, is sexier than ever. And I mean, they just deliver. I mean, it's got a great synth riff.
Oh, I love the synth. I was going to say that
there too. It's like it's in there, but it just grooves that song out perfectly. And I have listened to this album obsessively since Parallel Lines. I've listened to it so much that I almost had a vision of Tina Turner covering The Hardest Part. And I could really kind of hear Tina Turner pairing the song up too. So, you know, I think it does mark new territory for Blondie, and I think that they conquered it. They nailed it.
And I feel like that synth line was just a tiny bit of that reference to the disco from Heart of Glass.
Right.
Just a little tinge, but not even in the same feel. Like, it's just that Blondie magic. It's the first two songs. And I just want to mention the video album. Talk about capturing a time and a place in a bottle. Just, you know, New York 1979. Even the graininess of the film. Everything about it. When I watch it, I feel like I'm in 1980, 1979. So I love that video album. All right. Any other thoughts on Hardest Part? I'm sure we have more to say. Well, the song speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Right.
All right. Well, moving on. God, this album's good. Like, when you just, like, you look at the next track and you're like, oh, shit. So, if Dreaming's not my favorite Blondie song, then it's Union City Blue. Like, this song is so... It's just this wall of kind of melancholy, ethereal rock and roll. 1979. Wasn't it written for a movie she was in but rejected? Or there was a movie called Union City, right?
She wasn't allowed to actually sing in the movie contractually.
Okay.
So yes, but it was so. But she wrote the song, I think, on the set of the movie while she was filming it.
So I grew up in a small town an hour outside of Buffalo, and I grew up in a factory town. So, you know, a lot of these songs on Eat to the Beat are so industrial, northeast to me, and those kind of like smokestacky skies with like the kind of golden amber. I don't know. This song, I don't even think I have the words to say how it makes me feel, because it just takes me to another place that's kind of sad and kind of happy. I'm definitely not doing the song justice. I love this song.
I mean, I really think that this is like a stadium-size power ballad. I mean, this song is enormous. This, I mean, fills an arena. Just, it is that massive a song. I mean, it just knocks me away. I mean, I'm just blown back by the power of it. I mean, it's just magical. But I mean, this is a like arena size rock right here, power ballad.
The thing I love about the song is just the beginning of it, because it starts out with that you know, and Clem's on the drums, and it's like the anticipation of where in the hell is this going, and then all of a sudden you hit the you know, the main, you know, melody of the song, and it's just like, yeah, that's right. We're in the right place right now.
And of course, another great vocal from Debbie. I mean,
yes,
yeah,
she's taking us places in these songs.
I mean, I really think vocally, Eat to the Beat. I mean, no, I always love Debbie Harry's vocals, but there's something really like she's like on another level on this album. I think, like, is this some of her, like, when I think of like the vocals I really love of hers, Eat to the Beat is really up there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Daniel. And I think you're right. I think this probably is the album that she really shows off her vocals the best.
Yeah, I mean, the next song we're going to talk about is like, anyways, yeah.
I know, Daniel. This album's like, ugh. Mark, you got something?
Yeah, no. I was going to agree with Daniel about how I think at this point in time, her vocals were its most self-assured. And even if you listen to live performances from this time, she is spot on at live.
Yep.
And she was working, you could tell she was working so hard, and she was just so, she was not phoning it in at all at this point. And she was just really, really like turning it out, and this song in itself, I mean, it's just, always been a favorite of mine. And I'm sure when we get to the next song, when from back in 79, they've been doing the smash up of Shayla Union City Blue together. And it's just one of my, anytime they've done it, and I've seen them do it a few times live, it's just, it's like clockwork. When they go from the end of Shayla into the drums of Union City Blue, you could just, you could just cue the waterworks on me, because tears are just going to come, because it's just such an emotional moment for me. It's just amazing. It's this part of the album is just like, I feel like it's the heart of the album, and it is just so huge. It's like you said before, it is huge. It's an arena size song and sound.
We're back when Jimmy was saying that how Dreaming is like the song that you really think of when you think of Blondie. To me, it's Union City Blue. When I think of Blondie, the very first thing that comes is Union City Blue, because it is so anthematic, it is so emotional, and the vocals are, and the video to it, it's just great. I mean, it has nothing to do with the song, it's just them playing on top of a building with helicopters flying around, but it's perfect. I mean, it kind of shows that industrial grit and that, and it to kind of add to that whole dark, dramatic element that this album really does have. So,
so we're 3 songs in, and this album's taking my breath away, and it's about to get taken away again because fucking Shayla. Daniel, just take it away.
This song.
We're all gonna mute. We're all gonna mute right
this
now.
song is this song just is definitely one of my favorite Blondie songs, and I mean, like I said, I actually just watched Shayla 3 times today. I watched the video for it, and I just actually found myself crying at one point, because I just think there's just something. I want to know who that girl is, and what her whole deal is, that the whole thing about it reminds me a lot of that song by the Smiths, like I was looking for a job and then I found a job. Like it's the same sort of vibe, but like this girl, and then she just decides, fuck it, I'm out of here. And she just gets in her car and drives away. And how many times have we wanted to do that in life, where we're just like, I just want everything to stop. I just want to go. I feel like I'm stuck. And she does. And she just, I guess, she's just out on the road, and there's she's seeing thunderstorms, and she's just seeing all this cosmic energy, and she's seeing stuff up in the sky. And, and she's kind of thinking, and then Debbie oh, whoa, 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 that, all of that, it's just magic to me. We've talked about this a lot. Blondie has a bunch of different types of songs, but some of my favorite songs by them are these more of this song's not an acoustic song, but it has the same vibe as some of the songs from earlier albums, that have more of an acoustic vibe to them, that are more I don't know what the right word is. Trippy is such a dumb word. It's not trippy, but just very dreamy, I guess. Dreamy. It's a very dreamy song, There's something really otherworldly about it, So, and the beginning, with that, before the drums kick in, just all the guitar work is just this churning guitar work that's just kind of setting it up. And when it finally just boom, boom, when it finally kicks in, it's so satisfying. It's a great song. That's all.
I really feel like this one is, I wrote down in my notes, it sounds like it's from an album that has yet to be recorded. It almost sounds so futuristic that it's something that's going to happen to us in the future. I mean, it is a magical song, and it has a timeless quality that you just cannot define to a date and a year in the past, because it feels so much of the future to me. I mean, it's just, and we talked about her live vocals. I made myself kind of a playlist of live versions of all the songs so I could listen to them and compare. her live vocals at that time of Shayla were literally identical. I mean, it was just amazing to me. And I echo everything Daniel says. It's emotionally, and I just feel like it's just from a place we haven't even arrived to yet.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of another band that kind of has that atmospheric kind of magical thing, and the only thing I could come up with, which is so far off the mark, and you guys can all just punch me, but it kind of like Mazzy Star was the only thing I can think of.
It does kind of have that vibe, though. It really does. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Right. And here's a band that, sometimes they sound like the fucking Ramones, but sometimes they remind you of Mazzy Star. Like, what other band has that kind of breadth? And what other band has an album where the first 4 songs are so fucking perfect? Not many. I mean, there's some, but not a lot.
So Shayla's one of the reasons why Eat to the Beat still stays in my top 10 of favorite Blondie albums, because it's an example of, a song from that album, and I'll point out the other ones that I think about this that could have also been released as a single. This album has so many songs that really, with the right promotion and the right timing, this album could have been like a Michael Jackson Thriller that had 8 or 9, singles that made the top 40, top 30, top 20, whatever. And Shayla should have been one of those. And, Daniel brought up about the beginning of Shayla. And again, it's the same thing as with Union City Blue. It's just building that anticipation with those airy guitar sounds at the beginning and stuff. And then you just, boom, you get right into it. And that's why Shayla and Union City Blue are my 2 top favorite Blondie songs, period. I mean, because, anytime I think of, all right, I want to listen to some Blondie, boom, those are the first 2 songs that I go to, because, and smashing them together, I think Mark said this, smashing them together in concert could not have been a perfect lineup of a set list of songs, when they put those 2 together. They just go together like 2 Lego pieces. It's great.
The thing I also wanted to add about it, I don't think anyone can describe it better than Daniel did, but I love Debbie's job as a vocalist. She is such a amazing storyteller, and I don't know many vocalists who are almost, looking for the right word, but like actorly in their ability to convey. I mean, I feel like she approaches her vocals like an actor would, and she tells stories so well. And I love in this song, she's kind of singing in like, a kind of higher, head voicey airy. And then she gets to that point in the middle where she's like she's almost becomes like the narrator, and she's like,
yeah,
Jayla turn to, and she like takes her voice and puts it down into this fuzzy, warm kind of place, and it's just like, and then you realize that somebody else is talking and telling you this story, and it's just, I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant vocalizing, and it's
and she changes. And even in the video, she changes her costume then too. Like that's what she actually like has a whole different look to do that.
And the end of the song, when they're doing the whoa, whoa, it makes you want to get your lighter.
Yeah.
Just go back and forth.
Yeah.
And this didn't show up, damn phone.
Because historically, wasn't this around the time when there started to be the disco backlash? I feel like Blondie survived it just on the strength, after Heart of Glass, they could have easily made a disco album, and they really made a rock album. And I feel like Blondie, as fast as they got into the disco, got out of it. And kind of got to work their way around the backlash, at least from what I remember. I could be wrong, but I don't remember Blondie being grouped in with that as it was happening.
Wait till we get to Auto America, because there's some tones of that on Auto America, but I think there's a purpose for that on Auto America. So,
all right. Any other thoughts on Shayla before we move on? So, how do you follow up 4 perfect songs? I think Blondie was smart enough to know you gotta just do something. You gotta change gears a little bit. So now we have Each to the Beat, the title track. We're a little punkier here. It's a short song, just talking about peanut butter and pizza. There's a harmonica solo. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I never skipped this song though. It's not a Shayla, it's not a Union City Blue, but I feel like this is kind of the palate cleanser. This is we're kind of like exhaling a little bit. I mean, after Shayla just destroys your life, You gotta exhale a little bit. So get out the fucking harmonica and get out the peanut butter, motherfuckers. What do y'all think of the song "Eat to the Beat"?
Hated it.
You hate it? Okay.
I hated it.
I don't like.
I love the
placement.
harmonica, but I hated it.
I loved it at the time. I thought it was really fun. When I was like 15, that was a fun 15-year-old song. But when I listen to Eat to the Beat now, we've heard 4 stellar classic songs, and we know what's coming up. And so for me, Eat to the Beat is an interruption of perfection of side A. Because, the next song after it is right up there. So for me, Eat to the Beat, it actually was the first song that, was the title of an album. So this is the first time they'd done that. And I wrote a note. I was not sure about the harmonica because unless you're Neil Young or Stevie Wonder, you might want to rethink a harmonica in your song.
I love it.
I mean, I like it just because I've heard the song so many times, but like if I was gonna go play a Blondie song, it wouldn't be the first song I would play. Like it would be. I mean, like if it's on, like I would sing along to it, but it's not. I mean,
It's a
I
fun
like
throwaway.
it's a Blondie song,
Right. I mean, for me, when this song would come on, this was the song I would always make it louder because I knew it would piss my mom off.
Oh.
It was gonna and I never really paid much attention to it. And it was funny. I was just recently like looking at the lyrics, and I was just like, "Wait a minute, what?" Because the lyrics are insipid, And
Yeah.
it's peanut butter and eating pizza and beat your meat. So I'm like, is this about like a guy who just likes to eat and masturbate? I'm like,
Well, maybe that's
like to have people watch
maybe
him
that's
do
why
it,
I didn't dislike this song.
So, but I mean, but I'm like, I would,
Maybe the B-52s wrote it for them.
maybe, yeah.
You know what I was thinking is, we say that Madonna took a page out of Blondie's book, of course, but I could almost hear like Cyndi Lauper singing "Eat to the Beat" over Madonna with all that kind of yelping and like. I feel like Lauper could pull off a cover of this one. The only thing that makes the song tolerable is how short it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially where like Debbie does that little like vocal inflection, where she like kicks her voice up,
Yep.
like that was very Cyndi Lauper before Cyndi Lauper.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cyndi was doing Blue Angel then.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, she was.
All right. Well, we can put the harmonica away. I don't have too much more to say about this song. Does anybody? All right. Because, like it was said, we're about to go into another, how would side 1 have been without Eat to the Beat? Is it the palate cleanser we needed, or did we not need it all because
It's an unnecessary interruption.
accidents never happen? So
It did.
fucking good.
It just did. An accident happened, and they put Eat to the Beat before accidents never happened.
Dude,
So it's a pun. It's a pun to put accidents never happen.
Because it just did.
dude, what a song. Talk about, like Clem's, like where he's hitting the rim of the drum on the verses. Damn, this is just dynamite in a fucking song.
Another one that should have been a single.
Yeah.
Yes.
Debbie's vocals, the energy, the lyrics. Was this a Jimmy Destry? Who wrote this one?
Jimmy Dash.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, dude. Y'all know I love Jimmy, but this song is so fucking good, man. Okay, who wants to talk about it? Because I want to hear you guys talk about how good this song is.
I would be happy if every side ended with the Jimmy Destry song. I cannot. I don't think there's anything I could ever fault him on as far as songwriting. I
Right.
think he's an amazing songwriter. Yeah, this is one of my all-time favorites. Blondie, period. But it was funny. I was listening to it and I was like, oh wow. Well, as I was listening to it, I almost heard elements that we would hear 20 years later in Maria, which was also written by Jimmy. And I was like, that's very funny, like the guitar in the beginning, and I was like, oh wow. I'm like, and it's just, it just proves, what an amazing songwriter he is. I do recall, I think it was around 2003 or something when they were touring. I think it was right before Curse of Blondie came out. They had put this song into their repertoire. It's on the Live by Request, the A&E special they did. And it was just as good as it was back in '79. And it's just an amazing song live, amazing song on vinyl, recorded. And I could listen to it over and over and over again. I think great performance by everyone involved. The band has never sounded so cohesive, I think, on record. I love it.
I think someone could put this out today. Some band could just record this today and it would be a huge hit.
Yep.
I mean, because to me, this is like I just wrote, it still sounds fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, the way it gently builds. Debbie's vocals are so confident in this one. I mean, they are precise. She is like, diction is on point. She's not just like slurring anything through. I mean, it is amazing. And I just think that this song, some band should just cover it. And, because obviously, nobody's going to give Blondie airplay, just because that's the way things go. But I just feel like this is a fresh song that could be hit today.
And some of the synth lines in the song kind of reminded me of like what the Killers were doing on their early albums.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw Blondie at Janice Landing in St. Pete right before Curse of Blondie, and I remember the song being the set, and that was the first time I'd seen him live. I just cried through the whole fucking concert because it's like that was fucking Debbie in front of me for the first time in my life, and it was so fucking. And that remember how they're doing Good Boys on that tour? That like this is gonna be our new single, and I loved that song the first time I heard it. So, all right, accidents never happen. Any other thoughts on this song?
I remember how they were on television quite a bit during that time period, and they often did Accidents Never Happen in slow motion and, a lot of the hits, and they were on the Midnight Special and Saturday Night Live a couple times in '79. It was really great. I used to tape those off the television with a cassette recorder off a black and white TV so I could listen to the performance.
Don't you all kind of miss just the magic of the static?
Yeah.
Apparently, that Saturday Night Live episode is the most watched episode of Saturday Night Live. Had the highest viewership of any episode. That was Steve Martin and Blondie. Yeah.
Who was the host?
Steve Martin.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Damn. Oh. Well, side one of Eat to the Beat. Almost perfection if you take out the pizza and the peanut butter.
Agreed.
But I don't follow it too much. It's not a deal breaker or a game changer for me. To me, I just look at the song Eat to the Beat as like a little bit of an exhale. But I don't know if we need that exhale. All right, you flip the album over. Die Young, Stay Pretty. Well, too late for that because I'm old and never been pretty. But
So whenever I think of this song, this is the funniest thing. Okay, so my mom, do you remember back when like in the early 80s? This is my Die Young Stay Pretty memory. First of all, I love this song, but like do you remember back in the early 80s there was that whole Satan and rock and roll thing where it was like the preachers were like all of a sudden starting to preach about Satan and rock and roll, and my mom had this cassette tape that one of her really religious friends gave to her, and it was this preacher guy talking about Satan and rock and roll, and then he talked about Blondie look, and Debbie Harry singing about, well, why don't you all just kill yourself? Die Young, Stay Pretty. And so like he like was playing the Blondie song for his congregation, Die Young, Stay Pretty.
oh my gosh.
That's the first thing I always think of. And so now that's what I always think of when I hear that song. It's this stupid cassette tape that like my mom got.
I love this song. I just think it's so breezy. It totally has a different vibe than anything on the first side of the album. But I think it's a perfect song to kick off side two. If that what was the song that was the precursor? Oh, Hardest Part we said was a little precursor to Rapture. I feel like there's a little bit of a precursor to Tide is High here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It should have been a hint.
Yes, that should have been a single as well. It should not have been the flip side to Atomic. I remember buying the Atomic 12-inch single before I actually got the Eat to the Beat album, and Die Young, Stay Pretty was on that, or at least that version of the single. And I listened to that and Heroes more than I did Atomic because I really loved those two songs at that time. But, and again, Die Young, Stay Pretty is another venture into something new that they hadn't done on their first, 3 albums. More of more of a reggae beat to it, and I agree with you, Jeremy. It is kind of a precursor to what's to come with, The Tide is High, and then even on down into their, reunion albums. There's always some type of reggae-ish, islandish type sounding song on their albums now.
It's interesting for this being new territory. Like usually when someone goes into new territory, they're kind of like sticking their toe in. But on this album, Blondie was so confident, they just stuck their whole foot in because they don't sound tentative on the song to me at all. Like they're like, nope, we got this, motherfuckers. Like they are so confident.
There's a live version of that where I love because she, as the song's starting out, she, says something like, welcome to Radio Blondie. And there's like a bunch of reverb on her voice, and it just totally fits with the whole, the vibe of the song. And it's pretty cool.
Not to mention the dudes get a chance to come up and sing a little bit too. So
Yeah.
I was just about to say how I love when like they get a call back from the guys in the band. I think it's so much fun. Although I obviously love this song. But I feel like the sound of it definitely still fits in with the album. It still feels very cohesive, and it still feels like it fits in between all these other songs, which is what I love. It doesn't feel like it's like a departure per se, even though it definitely does have like a reggae or a Caribbean feel. I particularly love the humor and like the cheekiness of the lyrics on this. I just think it's just, infectious. You sit down alone in your rocking chair, transistor pressed against your ear. It's like, once again, completely painting a really, you have a visual there, and that's the thing that I love about, all of these songwriters that we're talking about. They can totally paint a picture and totally tell a story with their voice and the words that they choose. And this one is just, it tickles me. It's just so adorable, so that's it.
all right, I'm going to go out on a really wild limb here. This is totally wild, but in my mind, I have the album that's the sister album or brother album to Eat to the Beat. And you all can agree or disagree because this song made me think of it. I feel like this is fucking Blondie's Houses of the Holy. It's their follow-up to the biggest album. On that album, Led Zeppelin kind of had their Jamaican... What's the name of that song? Dire...
Oh, what was...
something about standing in the rain or something? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the one that baby, please don't go. And like House of the Holy jumped around with so many genres, but was still so cohesive and still so confident. So I know that's a really weird parallel, but I just felt like just like Led Zeppelin followed up their most iconic album with something just as confident and good. I feel like Blondie did that with Each of the Beat, with all these different genres still being really cohesive. All right. Any other thoughts on Die Young, Stay Pretty?
Well, I think it goes to show that they were still not playing it safe.
Right.
Yeah.
They were still going to be adventurous and give us something unexpected. And, I think that, side one, a lot of it is very much a studio sounding band. You flip it over, you've got, Die Young, Stay Pretty, and you're like you're in a different place. But it makes sense at the same time.
And I agree with Mark about the lyrics. My favorite line from that is dried up twig on the family
tree.
Makes me think of a few of my own family members. I look at him and say, you're the dried up twig on the family tree.
All right. Any other thoughts on Die Young? Well, I'm glad none of us did, so we could do this podcast together. Oh, we're all young. What are we saying? Okay. Next. Slow Motion. Wasn't there a Motown mix of the song on one of the singles, if I remember correctly? I will admit this was never one of my favorite Blondie songs. I don't hate it, but it's not one of my favorites. So somebody else agree, convince me or support me.
See, I think that should have been another single because it did hit that kind of Motown vibe, and it just really I feel like that could have gotten some really good radio play because of the mix of music that was starting to come out. And I don't know. I think that should have been a single for sure.
Is the backup singer back? What's her name? Elle?
Oh, gosh.
Who sang on Dreaming?
Ellie Greenwich.
Yeah, Ellie Greenwich. Is she
Ellie
on this
Greenwich,
one?
yes, I believe she's also on this one. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah,
What was it? Lorna Luft.
Yeah, but it's Lorna Luft. Actually,
Lorna
it's
Luft.
Lorna Luft.
Liza
with the
Minnelli's
backing
sister did.
vocals.
that
Okay,
is so
vocals also.
bizarre.
Isn't that crazy?
I
Yeah,
think they met
bizarre.
in 54.
Lorna Luft was the background
With
singer
Warhol.
for Slow Motion.
I remember that in Debbie's book now that she was talking about that. I knew it.
Yeah.
All right, who would like to go next talking about this one?
It's weird because it's like Slow Motion is a bizarre song for me because I actually love a lot of parts of it. There's parts of it I don't like as much. I know it's weird to say that about a song. My least favorite part of the song is when she actually is like singing the lyrics slow motion. It just kind of like loses some energy for me. And I hate saying that about a Blondie song, but the song starts off really strong for me. Like it has such a great vibe. Like it actually reminds me a lot of like some of the vibes from like some of the, again, going back to that girl group thing, like, it's kind of a faster version of I don't know, like it even has kind of the same, like a lot of the same energy, not the like the real energy that Dreaming had, but like that still has that kind of like 60s girl group but modernized vibe that I was talking about before. And I think that the melody has a really strong, like, what's all that commotion going on? Like, it's really good. Like the melodies, the hook is really there. I agree. Something about like that when she actually is going slow motion, like it's very anticlimactic to me. Like just because the hook is so strong at the beginning. And so that's my one problem with the song. But overall, I love the song. It's a Blondie song. I can't not love it. So
It's not really one of my all-time favorites, but there are definitely elements of the song. I actually always kind of like it when she broke it down and when she would do that still, she'll net, and that was always I kind of always love when she kind of goes into that, where she lowers her voice a little bit and she kind of gets into that smokier part of it, and that just kind of like resonates with me, and I just love that part of the song. But it's a little disjointed, but it's a Blondie song. I love it.
I kind of put this in the this is the weirdest podcast I've ever done because I'm coming up with these references that make no sense. But I kind of put this song in the same category as like white rock band Motown is like Would I Lie to You by the Eurythmics.
Oh,
okay. And
which of course, Would I Lie to You, I think had a better hook and better melody and stuff, but I still kind of put it in the same
vibe.
Right.
Vibe. Mm-hmm. It's a little dreamier. Real Lie to You is much harder sounding. Yeah. It's a little more dreamy.
There's a little Shayla in there.
Yeah,
it's not as aggressive.
Shayla. Her vocal delivery is a little Shayla.
Wait, was Clem playing with Eurythmics at that point?
Yes, he was. Wasn't he?
Yes,
he was.
He actually played on their very first album.
He did.
In the Garden.
Yeah.
Oh, I love In the Garden. That's such a good album.
Mm-hmm.
One day I want to do an Eurythmics series if anyone's a fan.
I'm there.
I'm for it.
Then probably Annie Lennox solo too. I'm just never going to end this podcast. There's so much to damn talk about. Okay. Any other thoughts on Slow Motion? I just want to say I don't dislike it at all. I would listen to Slow Motion over 90% of the music that's out there in the world. But it's not a Union City Blue for me, but it's also not an E to the Beat.
And it's not what we're about to talk about next, which is a friggin' genius song.
So, there was, of course, the iconic Atomic remixes from the 90s, which my gay ass was at the club. I'm like, they're playing Blondie. Like, and when did that come out? 94, 95? The Diddy, wasn't it Diddy that was doing all the remixes?
Yeah.
They're playing Mariah Fantasy. Mm-hmm. It was Mariah Fantasy. That's when Madonna had like the bedtime stories. But then there was fucking Atomic. And there was that singer Adamski. They had like a song with, I'm a big Nina Hagen fan. So there was a song with her at the club. So they were like playing all my stuff at the club in 95. But we're talking about the original version of Atomic. The disco's back, but it's been Blondie-ized with the song.
It's been new waveized.
Yeah,
It's definitely it's like yeah, that because it's still, again, this is like still when disco is like, you know, but yeah, they took it to a whole different area, you know. I mean, it is disco, but it's like it's not. I mean, it's like,
But they like they doubled down on the disco. I love the fact that they were like, disco is kind of going out. We're doubling down. And to
Yeah.
me, this is like a futuristic Western sounding song.
It's a
Yeah.
middle finger. It's a middle finger to that.
It
disco
really
down.
is.
It was
It's
a
like
big old
you
middle
don't
finger.
like disco, don't like this. You know,
Eat it.
it's like
Yeah.
we dare you not to like this.
Can you turn up the tremolo on the guitar, please?
But I also think that the thing that's amazing about it is like, yeah, it's disco, and they were saying, oh, we're gonna do one more disco song, but in a way, it almost kind of was a precursor. It kind of told, you know, it was sounded like things that were happening like 3 years later. I mean,
yeah,
like a lot
there's
of it,
something
I think a lot of
really,
it sounds like Girls on Film from Duran Duran.
yeah, exactly,
It sounds
exactly.
just like, you know, modern new wave.
Yeah, that's exactly that's the perfect way to put it. There's something I was about to say. There's something really luxurious about this, and I know that's a weird word to use, but it's just there's something really like God, I'm just seeing like people like, you know, dressed really well, like in this really elegant nightclub, not a disco nightclub, not like a John Travolta nightclub. I'm seeing like people in this really like stylish nightclub with gorgeous hair and you know, and they're just, it's not this. I mean, it really isn't. It's more like it's a precursor to like the new romantic sound is what it is.
Right.
It's like it's that. And I'm so glad you said that. Girls on Film is the perfect. Yeah, it's like, hey, there's going to be a thing in a couple of years called new romantic. This is what it's going to sound like, you know, which is cool. You know, it's cool as hell.
And who's to say that Blondie didn't already tap into that? I mean, look at what they did with Rapture, bringing the hip hop, you know, to the top 40. You know, I mean, who's to say they didn't? I mean, I've never read anything or heard anything that they had already kind of discovered this new romantic movement, and they thought, oh, let's try this, you know, because that's what they're all about anyway, is finding what's different out there and trying it. So, and I got to tell you, Atomic is the best example of what a great bass player Nigel Harrison is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that middle part where everything breaks down, he goes in a do 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 do, you know, just that whole, especially on the album version where you get the full, you know, bass line, not the edited version. He's just amazing on that. It just, you know, that it fits perfectly into that song and kind of gives you that kind of like, ooh, let's relax for a second. And oh my God, all of a sudden we're Atomic again with, you know,
dude, where Debbie comes back in like tonight.
yes.
Oh
With
my
the,
God.
what is there, 25 words in that song that make
Oh,
the
there's-
lyrics? I
There's
mean, it's
no
awesome.
lyrics. That's
Yes.
the thing it's kind of like their Fly Robin Fly. Like there's
Yeah.
there's
Yeah, I
no
was thinking it was like
lyrics
I
to the
Feel
song.
Love. It was like Blondie's I Feel Love. It's
Yeah,
like their
exactly.
version. You know, lyrics are so simple, but like literally it's everything. If the 80s were going to be about your hair is beautiful, the 80s was freaking about your hair. You know, I mean, the whole decade, it was about your hair. So
Are you reminiscing again, Jimmy?
Yeah, I know, right?
I think half this podcast is.
Yeah, I at one point I had a 1.5 foot tall mohawk, so it was definitely about hair. I could not grow like a 1 millimeter mohawk now if I tried, but
I could do the mo, but I think the hawk is long gone.
I could do the mohawk if it was like coming out of the sides of my head.
Yeah. Now, didn't Debbie say that she kind of just tossed off these lyrics to kind of just fill up space, but then they kept them?
Yeah, I had heard that it was like just a jam session, and she was just kind of like just, you know, riffing and coming, you know, just stream of conscious kind of thing. And they said that works, and they kept it. So that's the story that I heard.
Singing these songs, because, you know, do you remember the clubs back in the day when songs were about love and about this? Like, I remember singing my heart out to this song, and like, Your Hair is Beautiful is so simple, but it's so deep and weird. I know I sound stupid. But when I think of a Blondie dance song and a warehouse full of people dancing to it, I don't think of like was it Daniel who said the Travolta crowd? I feel like it's artists and bohemians.
Yeah.
dancing in that warehouse. Like Blondie was the Bohemians and the free thinkers and kind of the creative. So I feel like, damn, this song is just. And then the backup vocals at the end.
Exactly.
The way the reverb, like this is where the album gets back to being perfect, like side one for me.
Mhm.
And I was thinking to myself, what if Atomic had replaced Eat to the Beat on side A? You would have had like the most legendary side A of any album of any time.
I think the world would have blown up, Jimmy. The world would have just blown up.
It wouldn't have, you wouldn't be able to handle it. I mean, seriously.
Oh, damn.
What I think is funny about this song in particular, I mean, I remember at the time it didn't really catch on. You know, it wasn't really a big hit, you know, initially. And I've always kind of just said this was like the little Blondie song that could, because it just slowly gained momentum over the years. And then, I mean, I remember, I guess in the 90s when there was a remake of it in Train Spotting. And, you know,
I was mad. I was I was furious that they did not use Blondie's version.
I know.
When I made my own soundtrack, it was Blondie's version.
Right.
So.
But then, and then shortly after that, the remix version of that came out. And then I remember, you know, a lot of my European friends were saying like, "Oh, Atomic is always played at soccer matches," and you know, and
I think it was bigger in the UK originally. I think it did fairly well over there, but here, it just didn't land as well.
Yeah, I just feel like it's, you know, it just took it took its time, but it got there, and it's the classic that it should be.
It's it's Blondie's landslide. It didn't take off till the 90s.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on Atomic? Any other thoughts on wanting a new podcast host? Because all my references are whack on this one. But you know what? It's the Eat to the Beat taking me over. Blondie takes you in wild places.
Okay, here we go.
Sound Asleep. I remember the video. She's on a circular thing.
Yeah. Looks beautiful.
Yep, it's a ballad. Someone else talk. I have nothing to say.
I want this played at my funeral.
Okay.
I literally do want this play. I mean, it's actually in my list of things to happen when I die. And one of them is to play Sound Asleep at my funeral, because it just, I can't, words don't even describe that song. I mean, it's so, Follow Me on Auto American. Same thing. Even
I thought that too.
Follow Me is a remake, but you know, it's just, it is. That's the only thing I can say about that song. It just is.
Her vocals are so
for
beautiful.
Me though, I mean,
there should have been another single too, by the way.
I mean, for me, it's kind of like one of those, does it overstay its welcome? Because it's a long song. And by the time she hits the insomnia and no sleep disease, I'm like, dear God, I'm going to fall asleep, you know? And literally today, I listened to the album with my headphones. I said, I'm going to lay down and really listen to it. I woke up and the album had stopped playing, and I had fallen asleep during Sound Asleep and just totally missed the next two songs. But I mean, I love the song and I like what Jim is saying, and I totally get it. Because for me, my song is going to be Fade Away and Radiate. So that's going to be my outro to this mortal coil. But to me, it's like this is such a huge shift after the energy from Atomic that it just comes to a grinding halt. And I mean, it just seems like it goes on and on. It's beautiful and I love it, but I just almost wonder if it shouldn't. I don't see it as a single. I really don't see them playing that on the radio. Because you would fall asleep at the wheel driving. I mean, there would have been so many accidents.
That's because of the subliminal messages in it.
It works. It literally works.
It's 4 minutes and 12 minutes.
We were talking about the song that, you know, like when you mentioned like replacing Atomic, replacing, you know, that like putting Atomic on the first side and taking Eat to the Beat and putting it somewhere else. I don't know why they didn't end the album with this. Like this would have been a great ending. Yes. It would have made so much more sense than to put it between Victor and like to put it between Victor and Atomic is like it is really psychotic, and that is my problem. I agree with you. Like I love this song, but I would not like. I have to be honest with you. Like I've actually like when I've listened to this album before and I've gotten to this song, I've actually fast forwarded over it. And then I've listened to it, but I mean I've listened to the song a bunch of times, but like it really is it's just oddly placed on the album.
Yes, it's 4 minutes and 12 seconds long, so that is a lot of sleeping.
It has some absolutely gorgeous lyrics in it, though. Like some beautiful lyrics, and you can tell that you know she's a thinker. Like she's thinking about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing because I was re-listening to it, and today I was like, oh man, I was like, I can remember being whatever I was, 12, 13 when I got this album. And I was just like, oh, this piece of shit song, you know, and I, you know, hated it. And I was like, oh, it just drones on and on and on. And, you know, and I guess my 12-year-old self just kind of, you know, prejudged that. And I'm listening to it, and the lyric writing on it is just really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know, and I was kind of saying, oh, there's really no instrumentation. I don't even know if there's drums on it, you know, I mean, or if there is, I can barely hear them. But it just like, you know, it just goes, you know, you know, and it's just because the song is these lyrics, and you know, for anybody who's ever had insomnia or just not being able to sleep, she really taps into that and that mindset. And it's just, it's quite brilliant. It's really quite brilliant, the lyric writing on it. So, although, you know, I do agree it's, you know, unfortunately placed on the album between two bangers, but
it's weird. It's like it reminds me a lot. It has the same vibe as like, you know, on the Human League album Dare, they open up side 2 with Get Carter, which is just like a little synthesizer solo. Like it's like it goes on and on and on forever. It's like what's and you're waiting for something to happen, and it's just this one synthesizer note that's just like going on and on and on. And or like on, I was thinking on you know, God, I just had another example of it too, where like right in the middle of like a really energetic album, there's like this, on the Berlin Pleasure Victim album, and then all of a sudden there's that song Torture or something, which is like really like
yes
arduous, like in the middle of like, you know, the Metro and Sex and, you know, Masquerade, and then all of a sudden there's this like torture, and it's like it's always a song I fast forward over.
So our homework for the next podcast is to think of sound asleep from other albums where the vibe got totally destroyed in the middle of side 2.
All right, I need to leave and go cry for a few minutes. I'll be back.
Yeah.
But I do love that song, and I think it's gorgeous that you want to play it at your funeral. I totally get that. Like it's a beautiful song to play at a funeral. And I love the song. Like I said, if it was at the very end of the album, it would just fit the album a lot more.
I do agree with that. Ending that instead of with Living in the Real World. Living in the Real World probably should have been the first song on second side. But Sound Asleep probably could have ended. But about 15 or 20 years ago, I thought, what would this song sound like sped up a little bit? So I you know, put like a sampled drum beat behind it and added some effects to it and stuff, and it actually sounds pretty cool. I used do you guys remember that song? The singer's name was Imani Coppola. She was a one-hit wonder. And she actually stole the beat from like a 60s song or something. Anyway, that's the beat I used on this, and it really kind of gave that song a whole new vibe, but didn't take away from the lyric and the mood of the song. But yeah, that's at my funeral for sure.
So since you sped up a little, was that the Half Awake remix?
Yes, that was the one. That was the Keep Shimmy Awake remix. So, it's on my Facebook page. Go check it out.
Oh, cool. All right. Do we have any other thoughts on Sound Asleep, or should we talk about it for another 4 minutes and 12 seconds? Going once, going twice. All right. Shit's about to get wild on Eat to the Beat. This album takes you for a ride. I remember being 5 years old and having this album, and the song kind of scared me a little bit. The guys were like, oh. Then Debbie screaming and yelling. She's in a bar and in the video. I remember when the Friday Night Videos thing was on. I saw the video.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like goth. It's like goth Blondie. It's like punk. Like it's like goth punk Blondie. I mean, it's like they get really dark.
I know. And I can't think of any other song. Like, we have some of the songs that are like parallels through the Blondie catalog. There's definitely not like the Victor genre. They had never been here before, and I don't think they ever quite went there again like they did on this one.
Who wrote that one? Anybody know?
Debbie and Frank.
Debbie and Frank wrote it.
Debbie and Frank and Fonte, yeah. The thing I remember about this song is like I remember like when I would like play my album and stuff, and Sound Asleep is right before this, and usually I would I remember dozing off and then being like scared out of a dead sleep because of
Yeah.
But
that's about the only thing in that song I do like.
So you're not a fan of Victor?
Victor is about at the same level as E to the Beat. And honestly, I love the music in Victor. I mean, the music is phenomenal. Clem's drumming is great. The is awesome. It's Debbie's vocals. When she's doing that whole screaming part. Now, when she gets into actually like the bridge and the chorus or whatever, that's great. But it's just like the verse is just, I want to fast forward through that part or edit just like the verses out and just hear everything else. I mean, it just ruins it for me. The verse.
I do like where she goes into that coda or whatever. She's like, nah, da, da, da.
Mm-hmm.
I like. Is anyone else here a Lana Del Rey fan? No. Okay, on her last album, Blue Banisters.
I love her. She's great.
She had a song on her last album, Blue Banisters, Dealer, where she's like screaming and yelling. I'm like, girl, maybe you can do this with your voice, but we don't need to know that. And I kind of feel like a little bit like that about Victor. But on the other hand, I think it's kind of cool to hear Debbie doing that. So I'm kind of like torn in two directions.
I am too. But my notes were calculated art punk for this song. It felt like it wanted to be a punk song, but they're a little bit too calculated at this point to really pull it off. It's too arty for me or something. There's just something about it that doesn't sound natural. It sounds forced.
So do you feel like they went in the studio like, let's be artsy?
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's
do something
really
weird
out there. And
I'm still trying. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what the story is behind it. So it's like, is she like? Is she like? Because it's like that like there's characters like there's Victor, there's Annette, there's Anastasia. Like she's not a whore. She doesn't dance anymore. Like I'm kind of not sure what's going on.
Maybe Shayla ended up with Victor and they ran off to.
God, I hope not.
I know.
Didn't Debbie have a stalker? You think maybe this song might be a little bit about that stalker?
No, I mean, I was actually just Googling right now. I'm lame and I'm Googling lyrics, but like I was Googling the lyrics to Victor. I don't want you to go. Oh, please don't leave me alone. I don't want you to go. Don't leave me alone. And then there's like a note in the middle. Dear Annette, soon I'll be with you before they know, before the show. I'm not a whore. I dance no more. I'll be with you across the border. Dearest Anastasia, I'm leaving soon. So I don't know. I guess Victor, I guess Annette. Oh, and maybe Annette and Anastasia are the same people. I don't know. But
so unfortunately for you all, I'm gonna have to tell a story, which is just as bad as all the other ones I've told. But I remember once I went to an art show with my friend Rhonda, and we were like, there's art, then there's art. Where people very much take themselves, this is art. I feel like Victor is art.
It's art.
Yes.
And
probably so.
Yeah. I don't know about Victor. Does anyone else?
Maybe Victor was the whore because he had Anastasia and Annette and whoever else in the song.
Oh, well, I just have nothing else to say about Victor. Does anybody? An interesting experiment from Blondie.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely weren't playing it safe, but were they intentionally not playing it safe? Like Jimmy said, calculate. What was it? One more time.
Which also you also get
art rock.
I think also one of the things we do have to, well, we don't have to remember anything, but one of the things to remember, I guess, is they did get some back then. I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal now, but back then they actually did get a lot of backlash from their like punk fans and stuff because people thought they were like sellouts because of Heart of Glass. And so it's almost like on Eat to the Beat they wanted to remind everybody, so I think like songs like Victor and stuff and a couple of the other songs like or even Eat to the Beat like we're like, yeah, I mean, I know y'all had like your because I remember even reading an article in Rolling Stone way back then in 1979, and it was talking about how some of the like punk purists like were mad that like Blondie like had like this big disco hit, and so I think there is a lot of on Eat to the Beat. There's maybe some self-awareness, and it's like, okay, yeah, like let's put on this song that's like really gonna show everybody, like we can still do angry music too, you know what I mean?
The street cred. They want to keep the street cred.
Yeah, they're keeping it real.
And how intentional was it to put Victor right after Sound Asleep?
I know.
I mean, like Mark said, falling asleep, and all of a sudden I'm like woken up by this demonic, that's Blondie. I mean, that was very intentional to do that.
At the end of the day, I think I am Team Victor because it's so like what the fuck that we just talked about it for 10 minutes and I wasn't bored talking about it. Like,
no. I love that song, but I think it's like a psychotic song.
Have they ever done it live since this era?
I don't know if it's ever been done live. Barry would know. Barry, you know?
If it has been, I'm not aware of it.
Well, hold on. I thought it had been. Let me.
What if they open the next reunion
during like the 1979, the 1980 tour? The Eat to the Beat tour. I seem to recall hearing it live.
Oh, okay.
In some recordings.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in my playlist of live versions of all the songs, but I'm double checking myself.
What if they open the next tour with Victor? How'd you all feel?
No.
It'd be kind of cool. I think it'd be kind of cool, man. I'd be like,
yeah, they did do Victor.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll go up there and do the whoa.
They've never done Sound Asleep, which probably, that would in concert, that would just not go well, I don't think. But that's the one they have never done, I don't think.
They'd have to do a shorter version in concert.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think now if they did, actually, I think now if they like did it, like if they set it up and did it at the right time, I think all their hardcore fans would like it now because it's, we all know the song now, I mean, so if like maybe, I don't know.
I wish Sound Asleep was like Eat to the Beat, the song, just like kind of a shorter, breath of fresh air.
It could have been compressed, probably. But when Debbie turns 80, they need to do a tour. When she turns 80, that's 2 years from now, I think, right?
Oh my gosh!
They should open their tour with Victor. 80-year-old Debbie Harry singing Victor. That would be awesome. She would be any other person that's older that's been singing like Tina Turner and Cher or whatever. I mean, Tina Turner.
Open it with Die Young, Stay Pretty. How ironic.
Yeah. And then go into Victor.
And how ironic considering Debbie Harry. I mean, and I'm not just saying this, Die Young, Stay Pretty, but like, and she still looks gorgeous.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, like she, it's like she still looks absolutely gorgeous. So,
they could rework those lyrics and probably come up with something quite humorous.
Yeah.
To make that point.
And the thing I love about Debbie is she's not afraid of aging. You know what I mean? Like she's out there being who she is, like she always has. So I could see her going out there and doing that, ironically or not. Either way, however she wanted to do it, she would pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Debbie can do whatever the hell she wants and pull it off.
Well, that's what gives her the energy. I mean, she does take care of herself too, but she, that gives her that energy because she still has that youthful, mentality. I worked with a teacher, an art teacher, 85 years old, same mentality as Debbie. Didn't look as good as Debbie, but 85 years old. Every year on her birthday would go into the cafeteria and do a handstand. 85 years old.
Wow.
And it was
Wow.
just because she had the
That's
same
cool.
energy. I mean, she could beat me down the hallway. I mean, of course, I was 80 pounds heavier then, but it's that energy. I hope I have that energy when I'm Debbie's age, because
I
it's
don't have
like,
it now.
Yeah, I don't have it
exactly. I don't
now.
either. I want to know where to get it from.
I'm thinking about the chicken wings I'm going to order after about 10 minutes after this podcast is over. Okay, Victor. You know what? We haven't done this, but let's do it for this song. Let's give it the thumbs up, the sideways, or down. I want to see what everyone thinks. I'm giving Victor thumbs up. Sideways. Sideways. We got an up. We got an up. Barry's like, I'm not voting. Oh,
Yes, Barry, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm not a huge fan of that song. I'm actually not a huge fan of Frank Infante's writing.
Okay.
Oh.
He's written, I guess, 3 songs that I'm aware of, and I haven't liked any one of them. I don't know why. Maybe they're too punk for me. I'm more of a kind of electronic kind of thing. I love the synthesizers in Blondie, and and then of course I'm a fan of Goldfrapp, and
Right.
it doesn't get more
Goldfrapp's good.
synthesizer than that.
Yeah.
Didn't Frank join the Divinals shortly after leaving Blondie?
I think so. Yeah.
I think he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. He and Nigel and Clem, I think, formed a band called Checkered Past or Checkered Past or Checkered Past or something. And I think they did one album, and then I think that's when he went to the Vinyls. But yeah, you know how everybody says bye Felicia? I'm changing it to bye Victor.
Yeah. Bye, Victor. Okay, moving on. We're done with Victor. The album ends upbeat, living in the real world. I'm not living in the real world. Another great vocal from Debbie.
Yeah.
Another
And
upbeat
this one
ending.
sounds authentic to me.
Yeah.
This one sounds authentic. It sounds real. There's nothing forced. Great energy. Love. I mean, I just think it's great. Yeah.
Should have been a single.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it could have ended with Sound Asleep, but in the universe we live in now, I'm okay with this being the end of the album. I'm going to grab a glass of water. I'm not abandoning you guys. Continue talking about living in the real world.
Continue talking about living in the real world.
Oh, I read us some lyrics, Daniel. I know you're looking at them.
I do always Google the lyrics whenever we talk about the songs, because I want to, I mean, it's like because I it helps to just have them in front of me.
I did not do my
it's
homework.
like I'm looking at, to me, this is like about somebody who's like, those type of people that you would like, I don't know. It reminds me of somebody that like I would like bump into like at a nightclub in New York, and like they'd just be like talking about all sorts of things. Like they just kind of were like on their own like wavelength, and I've known a lot of people like that, where they're just like, they've got like, hey, I'm living in a magazine, like that. They're just like, their life is like, it kind of sometimes reminds me of Little Edie Beale from Grey Gardens, who I have tattooed on my leg doing her flag.
I love that.
I have a cat named after her, so
she's like my spirit animal. So like,
Yes.
so like, but it's like kind of just like celebrating the fact that like, yeah, no, I'm not on the same wavelength with everybody else, and I'm totally okay with that. And I love people. I mean, I guess I'm kind of like that too, but I mean, like, no more, like that. This person was at one point, but like, they're just like, fuck it. I'm done.
And another Destry song, right?
Yeah,
it's Destry.
So.
Yeah, it's Jimmy Destry.
Closing out both sides with a bang and successfully.
Makes me very happy. I love this song. I mean, I was almost wondering, like when I said like Dreaming starts, this album out, very full and bombastic. And like I said, it was a band who was celebrating and, celebrating their success and, coming at you with all this confidence and self-assuredness. I almost feel like this song in a way is kind of like, a testimony of like their fame or what it's like to be living in their fame, and they're living in this bubble now. And, not, I'm not living in the real world, and so I thought it was an interesting way to, end the album when it seemed to me like this was, a celebration of their success, as recording artists and whatnot. And like I said, I could listen to Jimmy Destry songs all the time. I love him as a songwriter, and it's one of my all-time favorites again. So I think it was a great closer to the album.
I mean, I was thinking about, because I'm all about song placement, and I typically will take an album and resequence songs to my liking. And I was thinking to myself, if we removed Each of the Beat from side A and put Sound Asleep after Accidents Never Happened, I think that would have been a very cohesive album side, and then just put Each of the Beat on side 2. And because I think Living in the Real World is a great closer. So Each of the Beat could have actually started side 2. It kind of would bookend because those two songs kind of bookend each other in the energy level. I'm not as fond of Each of the Beat, but
then you could follow it up with Die Young, Stay Pretty, and it would make sense.
Yeah,
that would be a good. I could see that too.
What an interesting album, right? Like, I'm so glad I got to talk with you guys about this in depth, because you have Dreaming and Victor on the same damn album, and Atomic.
With Jimmy, and don't chastise me because I love Debbie and Chris's writing, but I made a playlist that's just every Blondie song that Jimmy wrote. And that as an album, had that been released as a Blondie album, as original tracks as a Blondie album, I think that would have just gone haywire. Again, I love Chris and Debbie's writing, and they've written some great stuff, but Jimmy is just very with his writing back then, he's very solid and very consistent, and as a matter of fact, he did a solo album in '81, and I think it was to kind of help Blondie fill their chrysalis contract because they'd already started falling apart. But he did a solo album, and from what I understand, the new Blondie album is going to have one of the songs from his solo album on it.
Really?
Yes. I don't know which one it is yet, but
Little Metal Drummer.
Maybe so. But
is Jimmy back in the band?
No, they're just going to do his song.
Oh.
And if it is Little Metal Drummer, it's a really good song. You hear a lot of Blondie in the Jimmy solo album, and you hear a lot of, obviously Jimmy in all the Blondie albums, but they just made such a really good, I hate that he's not in the band anymore, because I just think that it was a really good mesh up of, writers. You had, Chris and Debbie, and then Jimmy, and then every once in a while, Frank and Nigel. But I don't think Clem wrote anything until the No Exit album, right? So, which I thought was kind of strange, but the song that he did on No Exit's an awesome song too. Was that Dreams Lost on Me? We'll get to that in a few albums, but Jimmy's just an amazing songwriter. I could see why they would start and end a song. Was Dreaming written by Jimmy? Accidents Never Happened was Dreaming written by
Dreaming was
Chris and Debbie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris and Debbie.
Yeah, those are definitely Debbie lyrics, I feel like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I could see why they would end an album with such a, with a Jimmy song, because it's strong. They know it's going to be strong. So just like Maria.
Well, I do hope you all stay with me through No Exit and all those reunion albums, because I want to follow this through to the bitter end, the not bitter end, the sweet pollen end.
That's
unless
right.
We get a new, unless we get a new album before then. All right.
And I've heard 6 months on that. So
we might still be doing this podcast by the time that comes out, so we can actually do it in around the time it comes out.
Yeah.
All right.
Like a release party.
One final comment about the Eat to the Beat album. So I worked in the digital video industry for a very long time, And one of the things that I always had interest in was that this album was released on a video disc called a CED video disc, which is essentially a means of storing video on something that's akin to a record album, where it was played with a needle. And it came in it's a full size, 12 and a half inch, a little bit rectangular, maybe a little taller than it is wide. And you would insert the whole thing into the player and it would pull the sleeve out, but leave the record in. But if you would defeat the mechanism, you could open the thing up and look at the thing. And it was a black thing that looked like an album. It wasn't as rigid as an album. And it was real shiny because the grooves were so tiny and there were so many of them that it would shimmer in the light like a CD does. And it was just an interesting technology. It was an analog technology before they invented digital. It was before VHS was out. And it was played with a record needle. And then they came out with Laserdisc after that, which was that was a digital format. And now everything's completely digital. But it was very interesting that in addition to movies, this particular album was released on that unusual format.
So you could watch the videos.
Yeah, so when you connect it to your TV and it would play
video.
video.
So you connect it to your TV. I wasn't really sure what you meant.
And you can't see the player because the thing that had the video on, the platter, it was like a vinyl, was inside the player and the needle was inside the player. So you would insert the whole unit and pull out the sleeve, and you'd have an empty sleeve, and the record itself would be inside the player, and it would play. It would spin it up and play it just like an album, and then you'd have to flip it over when it was at the end. So half of it was on one side, and then half was on the other side. And
were you able to get it to work on your TV?
Yeah, you just connect it like a video game. You'd connect the output.
What was the quality like? Like, did it look?
The quality was actually pretty good, but one of the things that was interesting is as it would get older, you might get dust or something on it, and even the tiniest little speck of dust would make it skip like a record did.
Oh wow!
But the quality was pretty good. It was basically like broadcast quality video back then. It was
played through a record needle
off the air.
That's so wild.
Amazing.
I've got a picture of that. I've got a picture of what he's not the record itself, but I got a picture of the cover, and
yeah,
right. It just totally
looks very similar to your background there, to the one up that's just above the
That's it. Yeah,
cover.
That's it. Right there.
It looked like that. Yep.
Oh, the media they have coming on.
Yeah.
On the B side of that disc, they had 4 other videos. They had Hanging on the Telephone, Picture This, Presents Dear, and there was one other one. I can't remember. Oh, Call Me, I think it was, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember what the 4th one was.
All right. Well, any other thoughts on Each the Beat before we wrap this up and I go get my chicken wings? Well, the time has come where we need to rank Each the Beat on a scale of 1 to 10. Just for fun. I'll start this time. Usually I go last. Nope, never mind. I'm going to go last. Okay, I'll go first. I'm going to give it a 9. I'll give it a 9 because side 1 is almost perfect. Side 2 is a little bit less almost perfect, but still really good. Didn't I give Parallel Lines a 10? I gave that a 10, so I'm going to give this one a 9. Because there's a couple on there that I skip if I'm in the wrong mood.
I second you.
Did you second me, Barry? Did you give it a 9 also?
Yes.
All right. Jim, how about you?
You meant Jimmy, right? You meant Jimmy, right? All right, don't hate me, guys. 7.
Oh!
I'm sorry. It's not one of my go-tos. It really isn't. And other than Union City, Shayla, and Sound Asleep, I mean, it's just when I want to go to a Blondie album, it's not on the top of my list.
There's no wrong opinion about music.
Well, I'm going to counter that because I'm going, and I decided I'm going to rank it on a Blondie scale. So I'm not comparing them to other bands
Okay.
and ranking them, like rating them in a comparison with other bands. But in the Blondie universe, I gave Parallel Lines a 9.5. So I think I would give this a 9.8 in the Blondie universe.
Okay.
So for me, it's a little bit. It's just there are some elements that I feel are better than Parallel Lines.
Is there a 10 for you in the Blondie universe at some
There
point?
there may be 110 in the Blondie universe.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm loving these podcasts. Thank you guys so much. I know we're not done with the rankings, but I just want to say how much fucking fun I'm having sitting here talking about fucking Each of the Beat for 2 hours. Okay, Mark, you're next.
Oh, okay. I think I gave Parallel Lines a 10. I think I would give Each of the Beat a 9.5.
Oh God, y'all are gonna make me look bad.
Yeah, because I just, and it's not necessarily even my go-to, or Parallel Lines for that matter. It's not necessarily my favorite Blondie album. It's not the one I normally go to, but I do have to admit it's pretty. I find it pretty stellar.
What a great follow-up to a smash album.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least.
I don't think I can't remember what I gave Parallel Lines. I think I gave it like a 9 point something. And with God, I'm so torn because I want to give Each of the Beat a 10. I want to be the person who gives Each of the Beat a 10 because it is probably the and weirdly enough, I am a big Hunter fan. But like it's like don't get me started on the Hunter like that.
We're gonna have a good time, Daniel.
I have a lot of deep experiences with that album. Like that album, I really go deep with that album. But like, so with Each to the Beat, even though it's not a perfect album, emotionally I give it a 10, but realistically I give it a 9.5. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
No,
it's a very dear album to me. It's for some reason this is a very special album to me. I don't know why. It really speaks to me, probably more than the other albums. And even though there are moments that are just really problematic, like, and we've discussed that. And there's even a couple songs like Each to the Beat is like not. It's kind of a. I don't not like the song. I mean, I like the song. And, Sound Asleep, like it's in the middle of like, I mean, it's just so psychotic where they put it. It's not a well put together album. It seems very disjointed at times. Agreed. And then there's other times where it really just finds its footing and it just goes. I love all the songs on the album for different reasons. And I've spent a lot of time with this album. So I think just my life with the album, when I think about my relationship with the album, I would give it a 10 for that reason.
Right.
But then when I actually really look at the album for what it is, I would give it probably a 9.5.
Yeah, I feel like the high points of the album are just out of the stratosphere. Is anybody here a Tory fan? Because I feel the song Each of the Beat's the fucking Mr. Zebra of the album. All right. Well, friends, I propose that we meet again in September, where we will have gone to the 80s. We will be talking about Rapture.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to talk about Call Me, even though it's not on the album. Is this something that needs to be talked about?
Mm-hmm.
And let's let the Blondie party continue. I'm gonna upload this right after I eat dinner, and I'm gonna put it in the chat. And we're doing a special episode Sunday for Sinead O'Connor. If anybody from this panel wants to join, I'll put it in the chat. So any parting words before we move along?
Yeah, Jeremy, you never gave us your score.
A 9.
You were gonna go.
I think
you were gonna go first, and I think you backed out, didn't you?
Okay, I'll give it a 9.
Okay.
Oh, he went first, and I seconded him.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That shows how stupid I am. I'm like, I can't remember what I gave it. Barry, I'm glad you seconded it because I didn't want to mess up. All right, so thank you to everybody. I will see you in September for Auto American.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.